Dave Keating standing by in Brussels. Dave, any reactions from Europe after Moscow effectively went ahead and signed those annexations of those four Ukrainian regions in its control?
Well, we've had a reiteration of the EU's position put out here, saying that they do not recognize these sham referenda and they see these annexations as being illegal. We had that forcefully put forward by the presidents of the European Parliament. For instance, on that, the EU's position hasn't changed. And in fact, the EU issued its 8th round of sanctions against Russia yesterday in anticipation of today's announcement. Those sanctions were long planned, but they were specifically presented as being a response to this provocation. Now, I was watching this speech here at the European Council, and I can tell you, talking to EU officials behind the scenes, what really worried them about this speech was who Putin was appealing to, the developing world and elements, right-wing elements, within America and within Europe. Specifically, he was railing against Western elites, as Doug was just mentioning there, and he was even using language that was exactly copied from Giorgia Meloni, the new far-right prime minister of Italy, when he was talking about children having to have parents that were labeled parent one and parent two. That is a Giorgia Meloni line. So I think that has unnerved people a bit here, that he is, on one hand, trying to present himself as the leader of a global resistance against the West by the non-West, and that he's appealing to far-right elements here within Europe and within the United States in the Republican Party.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, considering that just a couple of days ago, you had the French president at the UN General Assembly accusing Moscow of carrying out a new form of imperialism with its invasion of Ukraine. Dave, I want to talk about something else Vladimir Putin alluded to. That's the fact that the damage we've seen to those Nord Stream pipelines was in fact brought about by the West and not Russia.
Delato, the audio just cut out there, but I think you're asking about the Nord Stream pipeline. That did come up here. So energy ministers meeting here for an emergency meeting in Russia just finished their meeting, and they did talk about that Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. There is still no evidence for who did this. And as we saw the ministers come out here today, of course, they have their suspicions. They believe this was Russia, but they're holding back on saying that for the moment. Meanwhile, Russia is casting suspicion on the United States or maybe even Ukraine for sabotaging these pipelines. Russia has called this meeting of the UN Security Council later today. We'll see if Russia thinks they have any evidence to present then. At the same time, we have today, the energy ministers have adopted some pretty major energy positions here. For instance, Europeans will have to reduce their electricity consumption by 5% during peak hours under a law that was just agreed today. And also, they approved this windfall tax. So this will be a confiscation of the excess profits of energy companies, these record profits caused by the high price of energy, and those proceeds going to households who are struggling with their energy bills. So some major decisions taken here today. One decision not taken, a cap on the price of Russian gas or gas in general. The Commission has not come forward with a proposal on that. There is a big split. About 15 member states want the EU to put a cap on all gas imports. The Commission says they want to cap just Russian gas imports. The problem is the lawyers here at the European Council say that would be a sanction, not an economic measure. A sanction needs unanimous approval, and Hungary will veto it. So right now they're trying to work out some way to do that that would not require a unanimity vote, and that is still a work in progress.
Dave, since Vladimir Putin ordered that partial mobilization of Russian forces, draft dodgers have been coming into the EU if they have tourist visas through Finland, for instance. Do we have an announcement on that?
Yeah, we had an announcement from the Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson just about an hour ago outlining the EU's unified position on this. This contains some pretty important changes, or the Commission might say clarifications. The EU has been split on this. The Baltic countries have had an outright ban on Russian draft dodgers entering. They've been able to enter through Finland, but now the Commission says that these draft dodgers cannot be issued visas. That's really important. Why? Because these short-term visas are only for for 90 days. If you're dodging the draft, you would need to stay here for more than 90 days. So if a Russian young man shows up at the border and says, I'm here because I'm dodging the draft, they can't let them in. They could apply for a long-term residence visa, but that's very unlikely. So their best route is to apply for asylum. And Commissioner Johansson said the rules on asylum have not changed. Russian citizens have the right to apply for asylum just like anybody else in the world, and that is the route they should go. Another important change, Russian citizens cannot apply for EU visas in non-EU countries. So all those Russians who have gone to Georgia, for instance, they cannot go to one of the EU consulates there and apply for a visa. They need to be in their home country, Russia. And I imagine those draft dodgers who have gone to Georgia cannot go back to Russia in order to apply. So some significant changes there. Also, the most important change, countries do not have to let a Russian citizen in if they have a Schengen visa. They can, those border guards can deny entry to that person even if they have a Schengen visa, and they can do that based on security grounds.
Dave, thank you very much for that. Dave Keating reporting there from Brussels.